Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Launch Space here on Microsoft Learn TV. Today, we're talking about exploring Elastic's integration with Microsoft Azure. Before we get going with our guests, I did want to invite those of you who are on the Microsoft Developer YouTube channel to join us over on Learn TV. So aka.ms/Learn TV is the place to go. And the reason why you want to do that is so that you can interact with our guests, ask any questions, and generally participate in the show. All right, so we'll get going with our guests now. We have three folks today from Microsoft and from Elastic who are going to be joining us. First off, Hemant Malik is going to give us a little bit of an intro to Elastic and some of the things we can do. And then we're going to have Osman Tadachar and Osman Ishaq. Sorry about that. And Rohit Tadachar are going to come and talk to us a little bit about data integrations that you could do with Azure and Elastic. And last but not least, Hemant's going to come back and give us an Elastic demo showing how you can actually make these things happen on Azure. So we'll start with Rohit. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Rohit Tadachar. I'm a program manager with Azure Developer Experience team. And today I'm really excited and happy to bring this integrations with the Elastic offering on Azure to light. So really excited to talk about it.
Great. Osman?
Hey all, I'm Oz. I'm a product manager for Elastic. And same with Rohit, I'm thrilled to talk about the integration. We've been working closely with the Microsoft engineering team to make this a reality. And we're just super excited to show everybody on the call like how this works, and happy to take any questions as well.
Yeah, this is great. It's going to be a good interactive show. So Hemant?
Hey everyone. Like Oz and Rohit said, it's amazing to be here for the next hour and so to walk everyone through the exciting developments in the integration that have been happening. And I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Great. So welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to all of our guests as well. And I'll let Hemant get started with an intro into how Elastic works, what it does.
Perfect. Thank you. So like everyone already talked about what the topic of today's session is, before we start getting into the specifics of Elastic on Azure integrations that recently have been announced, I just wanted to take a few minutes to get everyone on the same page when it comes to the background on Elastic technologies and solutions. So what you're seeing on the screen, essentially, there are three solution areas that Elastic provides the users and customers tailored experiences to try and work with the data. And all these solutions are powered by Elastic Stack, or you might have known it or used it as an ELK stack. These three solution areas are enterprise search, whether you're trying to put a search box on your web application or an internal portal for employees to find the information that they need to work with. Or you might be looking at the observability data, things like logs and metrics and application traces to monitor your infrastructure, application, microservices, and so forth. And the last one is to try to protect, detect, and keep your assets and data secured, leveraging the security solution that's built on top of Elastic Stack. What this translates into a single platform providing multiple solutions to different teams who are out there to solve different challenges. So knowledge workers might be leveraging that portal that gives them and provides them access and relevant search experience for the content sources that they need. Developers and operators might be using the observability solution, leveraging the same Elastic platform to monitor the infrastructure and applications. And security teams would be at work leveraging the solution to make sure the data and assets are protected for your organization. What this translates into a same platform providing multiple solutions and helping the team solve those challenges, at the same time giving them that differentiated opportunity to be able to collaborate and cross-pollinate among themselves as they use the single platform for multiple solutions. At this point, I would like to start getting into Elastic on Azure specifics. And Dimitri, if you could help us play that video that sets the stage for Oz and Rohit and myself to start talking into the details that pertain to the integration.
Businesses are accelerating digital transformation by migrating to the cloud, while looking for ways to turn data into insights. That's why combining Microsoft Azure and Elastic makes so much sense. Microsoft Azure provides scale, speed, and resilience in the cloud while offering enterprise-grade security and seamless integration with the tools you already use. Elastic takes enterprise search to another level, allowing you to find and analyze diverse data in real time, even at petabyte levels. These complementary technologies shorten the path to insights by providing usable, aggregated data so you can see results and act on them. It's the perfect marriage for open source users and dev teams looking to embed search into apps and websites. You can easily deploy Elasticsearch on Azure and spin up the Elastic Stack in minutes. And the controls for your deployment have customizable options. Choose what you need. When you run Elasticsearch on Azure, you get simplicity and speed, as well as out-of-the-box tools to develop deeper data insights. And that's good business. Visit azure.com/elastic to learn more.
Perfect. Thank you, Dimitri. So the first step on any journey for Elastic on Azure users is deploying Elastic Stack, or the solutions that I talked about earlier. We embrace the unique needs of different teams. Everyone would like to have the flexibility, control, or maybe they just want to focus on their data and do not want to deal with the operational aspects of Elastic. And keeping that in mind, there are multiple options for you to deploy Elastic on Azure backed by the partnership. You can leverage the ARM template that we have to deploy Elastic on your Azure virtual machines. You can leverage the Elastic Kubernetes operator to deploy Elastic on AKS clusters. For most of the users, we strongly believe that the managed service would provide that option of deployment that get them fastest to the value, and that's our Elastic Cloud, the managed service on Azure. These are available on Azure Marketplace as well, and which is a perfect segue for me to hand it over to Rohit to walk us through the new development that we have in terms of the integrations through the marketplace.
Thank you, Hemant. We here at Microsoft built this integration to fulfill our vision of providing a delightful and powerful experience of the most used and loved partner offerings on Azure. Delighting our customers is a core philosophy of both Microsoft and Elastic. And the first steps to achieve this is via the seamless integration of the Elastic offering on Azure. Now, we have consistently heard a theme from our customers for the ability to easily create and manage the Elastic service on Azure without needing a go around between the Azure portal, Elastic offering, and our marketplace. With this integration, we enable a seamless and Azure native deployment of the managed Elastic offering from the Azure portal. Extending on this, we have addressed the request for a unified experience between Azure and the Elastic Cloud via a single sign-on experience that complements the feature offerings from the two clouds. This brings us to another core customer request around logs management for the Azure resources via Elastic. To achieve this, we have enabled a mechanism to send Azure logs directly to Elastic and plug them into a Kibana dashboard, which enables an out-of-box experience to view and manage the logs. This is very powerful as it not only simplifies the steps required to set up and manage the logs for all Azure resources, but also allows for a seamless visualization of the logs itself. Another top customer ask has been to ensure secure connectivity between the customer virtual network and Elastic VNet, which is now achieved via private link integrations. Now, extending on these experiences, we hope to continue our build together efforts with Elastic and offer other seamless integrations for your end-to-end scenarios. Osman will now walk you through a demo of our current experience and also an insight into some future experiences.
Thank you, Rohit. By joining forces with Microsoft and Elastic, you're now able to accelerate your Elasticsearch experience by deploying it as a native service, just like how Rohit mentioned. You can manage Elastic via the Azure portal, You can easily move data from various services directly into your cluster, eliminating integration overhead. By being a native service, you'll see Elastic as an option throughout the console, making it very easy to get started without the need of managing the infra yourself. And with being a native service, Elastic is not just a standalone resource, but a really integrated, integral part of the Azure platform and embedded in the user experience to really help simplify getting started, moving data across services, reducing overall effort that the industry kind of just accepts as needed as a normal part of standing up a service. So now let's take a closer look at how all this comes together with a hands-on demo of the native integration experience. So starting from the Azure homepage, everyone, when you first log into the Azure console, you see a page something like this. And typically to install a third-party service like Elasticsearch previously, you had to go about finding things on the marketplace, signing up for an account, setting that up, and you had this overall disconnected experience for setting up a service. Now with this native integration, you can simply search for Elastic in the search bar, and you'll see Elasticsearch come up as a service, which is reserved for the native services under Elastic. You'll still see the official marketplace offerings as well, but the main point is that there's now a native service called Elasticsearch that you can deploy as a resource within the Azure platform. Now, if we click into it, continuing on with that native flow, you'll see a list page as well. So this is the list page for all the existing Elasticsearch clusters that have already been created under my account. So at a glance, I can see them just like I can all my VMs that I've already deployed, all my Kubernetes clusters. It's all here listed in the Azure console. And if I were to click on this create button at the top left, it'll take me to a create flow. Again, same thing. It's now a native service, so you're going through a create flow to create an Elasticsearch resource directly in the Azure console. And if we kind of pick apart this create flow, you'll see a lot of concepts that are familiar with every Azure resource that you create. So there's a subscription that you can pick. There's a resource group you can pick. So I'll just go through the flow a little bit. You can also pick a region as well. So Elasticsearch on Elastic Cloud is available on many different Azure regions, the most popular ones, of course. And you can really pick which region you want to deploy Elasticsearch to in case you need to abide by compliance reasons. If you have a workload that's latency sensitive, you can pick a region that's very close to your application and your databases to ensure that there's not a lot of latency between talking from your applications to Elasticsearch as well. In terms of size, as Hemant mentioned, Elasticsearch is meant to handle data at any size, whether it's terabytes of data a day, that's fine. You can scale up your Elasticsearch cluster as you need to, and Elastic can handle that as well. And the other point to mention is that when you create a resource, you're basically paying for the hours that you have the resource running. So Elasticsearch is basically priced as pay-as-you-go. So you don't need to worry about paying upfront for a cluster for an entire month or an entire year. You can kind of just deploy that resource, use it for however long you need to, and then go forward with it. Next, I'll briefly talk about logs and metrics, but there's an integrated logs and metrics integration we'll cover in just a few minutes. You can tag your resource as well, just like any other Azure resource. You can provide a tag rule here, and anywhere else in the Azure platform, you can search and filter by resources of that tag, and Elasticsearch is now part of that as well. And then the last step is basically to review and create, just like any other Azure resource. You're reviewing the process here, basically double checking what you just configured. And once all is good, you can simply hit this create button and it'll create an Elasticsearch resource for you. Behind the scenes, it's powered by Elastic Cloud, which is the official Elasticsearch managed offering. There's an integration behind the scenes that happens, but all of that is really abstracted away from you. You do not need to worry about that. We handle all of that behind the scenes. And at the end of the day, you'll get an Elasticsearch resource in the Azure platform. So let's take a closer look at what that Elasticsearch resource actually looks like. So I'm not going to go through the steps of actually creating one. I have a few already created. So let's go into one of my resources that I've already created. Let's find production logs. Here we go. I made one called production logs. So I clicked into production logs, which is my Elasticsearch resource. And as you can see here, you see an overview page. Again, just like every other Azure resource, there's a page dedicated to providing you the current details of everything of your object here. So you can see there's a status that gives you a quick view in terms of the health of your Elasticsearch cluster, the region, the version, the size, and a few other things as well. So you get that whole native integrated experience with your cluster, and it also acts as a launching ground for anything else that you can do with your cluster as well. So one of the common things that a lot of people do when they spin up Elasticsearch is they like to go into the UI of Elastic, which is Kibana, if you're familiar with the Elastic Stack. So from here, there's a few different deep links that you can click on that'll take you to Elastic. So for example, if you want to add more data to your cluster, you can kind of click on this link. It'll go through an SSO handshake process, all using your Azure account, and it'll navigate you directly into Kibana. So from Kibana, you can get started by adding many different types of data into your cluster by following the in-product guides. So if you have a search use case, you can follow along with enterprise search. Or if you're looking for time series data, you can get started with observability or security and so forth. It's a much simpler experience because you can just use your Azure account to authenticate and then get right into the product experience without having to muck around with authentication details and such. If you're looking to do some more advanced type of activity, as I mentioned before, this is powered by Elastic Cloud. So you can click into the Make Changes in Elastic Cloud button, and this will launch the Elastic Cloud interface. So over here, you can manage the deployment itself, which is the size of your cluster. If you want to increase the size, you can do that. If you want to enable auto scaling for a more of a worry-free experience, you can do that. You can also enable some security rules that Rohit talked about, like, for example, private link. That can all happen in the Elastic Cloud Management Console UI. Again, it's just one click away, and you can access that by just clicking on it, and we'll authenticate you via a few different handshakes. Now, back on the Azure Elasticsearch overview page, I mentioned briefly there's some deeper integrations that we have to show you today. So one of the big integrations that we've done is we've integrated Elasticsearch with Azure Platform Logs. So if you click on Ingest Logs and Metrics from Azure Services, it'll take you to, well, I'll go through this in a different way. Let's click on the Logs and Metrics blade here. So in my cluster, I've enabled subscription and resource logs. So these are Azure Platform Logs. And by simply clicking on these checkboxes, I'm telling Azure to basically suck up all of the platform logs for all the resources that are deployed on Azure and send that over to Elastic. I don't need to spin up any type of agent like FileBeat or anything like that and deploy that to the Azure platform. All of those technical details are handled for me. I can simply click on these buttons, hit save, and in a few minutes, I'll start to see some of the data flow into my Elasticsearch cluster. If you want to only suck up or ingest resources of a particular type, you can further narrow that down by specifying tag rules. So via an include or exclude rule, you can specify which particular resources that you want to ingest. So for example, if you have a production Elasticsearch cluster and you only want to ingest logs and metrics from production resources, you can simply specify a tag rule for that and only ingest those logs here. And then once you select these checkboxes, going back into Kibana, you can view those logs as well. So I have a saved search that I did. I'll just open that up under platform logs here. And this gives me a real-time view. So this is in the last 15 minutes. It looks like it sucked up 35,000 records. And there's a quick view into it. You can see it's an administrative log type. Here's the platform log category. And you can see the message over here as well. So you don't need to worry about setting up an agent. It all happens for you. That's part of the integration, takes care of all that, giving you the data in Elasticsearch so you can analyze it really, really quickly. The other interesting part about this is that the entry point to do this is not only within the Elasticsearch context as well. So if I go to the Azure, back to the Azure console, and I say, click on a Kubernetes cluster, every resource within Azure has something called a diagnostic settings page. So in diagnostic settings, you can configure where to send logs and metrics of that particular resource. You can send that to a event hub stream, a storage account, log analytics within Azure. But now with this deeper integration, you can actually choose to send that over to Elasticsearch. So back to my production logs example, I've configured all of these different platform log types to be sent to a partner solution, which is now part of the Azure platform. And here I can pick which specific cluster I want to send that to. So I've sent that to production logs, which is my cluster that I've been working with. So this is already configured. I can go back to Kibana, open up a saved search that I have saved, and then view all the specific platform logs for that particular cluster that I just configured. So here's my cluster name, my Kubernetes cluster name. Then I can see all the different events that are coming in as well. Again, all with just a few clicks. You don't need to set up any type of file beat or any type of agent. That all happens for you as a user. Just add a few clicks and you can grab those resource logs and pipe that directly to your Elasticsearch cluster as well. Another point of our integration is a lot of customers, of course, run applications using virtual machines on Azure. So now with this integration, we've added integration with Azure Virtual Machines to easily ingest the system logs from any virtual machine that's running on Azure. So again, with just a few clicks, you can click on any of the virtual machines that you have running, and you can choose to do something called install extension. And behind the scenes, what this is this installs a VM extension onto your VM, and that VM extension deploys the Elastic agent. And the Elastic agent helps to collect logs and metrics and send that over to your Elasticsearch instance. Once you have this agent deployed, you can click on, here's a nice example. There's one that's installed called Oz App Server. And you'll see at the right, there's a few links. If you click on one of these links, it'll actually deep link you into Kibana so you can start to view the logs and metrics of that particular VM that you just configured. So over here, I clicked on the metrics link from Azure, and it's taking me to something called the Metrics Host Overview Dashboard. So let's just give this a few seconds to load. And then you'll start to see a lot of different metrics that we collect out of the box with this integration. So there's some network traffic metrics, CPU, memory, some time series CPU dashboards, IO dashboards. It's all here out of the box, just with a click. We SSO you using your Azure account, and then you can have a view of your metrics running right off the bat here. And if you want to go a step further, what happens behind the scenes is that these VMs get an Elastic agent deployed. And an Elastic agent uses something called Fleet. And Fleet lets you control via the Elasticsearch instance what data to collect from the agent. So if you're running particular applications within your agent or within your VM, you can choose to collect specific logs and metrics from those applications. So for example, by default, I'm collecting system logs and metrics. I can choose to add in an integration if I know I'm running something like Nginx on my VM. I can simply choose Nginx here, and with just a few clicks, I can hit save, and then it'll start ingesting the Nginx logs parsed for you and send that over to Elasticsearch, and you can view those logs and metrics in Elasticsearch and Kibana ASAP. From the security side, as Rohit mentioned, there's a deeper integration with something called Azure Private Link. Azure Private Link allows you to connect your Azure resources to other services without being exposed to the internet. So if you have a workload for Elasticsearch that's very privacy focused and you don't want to expose that over to the internet, you can now configure that with Azure Private Link. So from the Azure console, you can click on Configuration, and you'll see a few different options here, an option to resize and things like that. You can click on a setting called traffic filters. And what a traffic filter is it's a concept in Elastic Cloud that basically lets you set up a private link connection. So if you have an existing private link endpoint in Azure, you can configure that so that any clusters that are configured with this traffic filter connection will only accept traffic from that private link endpoint. It won't go over the internet. So in this example, I've configured a private link endpoint here, and I can apply this to any cluster that I already have running. Furthermore, if you want, you can also limit traffic by IP ranges as well if you're not using private link as well. So that's just a tip of the iceberg in terms of the integrations that we have now. There's a lot more integrations that we have planned. This is just the beginning. We have a long roadmap of a deep integration with the Azure platform, and we're going to be covering a lot more in the next few months. We're going to be focusing on adding support for more regions of Elasticsearch on Azure. We have many more regions to add support for, so we're excited to offer that support. We're also looking to do some deeper integrations with more Azure services. So we touched upon a bit about Azure Platform Logs and virtual machines and Private Link. There's a slew of other services that we've gotten constant feedback about, like Kubernetes and things like that. So we're looking to break ground in a lot of really cool, interesting integrations. We're super excited to work on that. And we're also really looking to simplify the enterprise use cases of managing Elasticsearch and resources within Azure by having a deeper integration with Azure IAM, with Azure Active Directory, and just simplifying the onboarding and management of Elasticsearch resources in the Azure platform to make it really easy and seamless to manage the resource in your tenant. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Hemant, who's now going to talk more in detail about the various different Elastic solutions that are available to you once you've deployed Elastic on Azure.
Thanks, Oz. That was awesome. Huh? There we go. Thank you for that. And sorry about the jump. I did have one question, Andrew. I want to remind everyone that it's a live broadcast. If you go to aka.ms/learntv, you can join our broadcast, ask questions and everything. Andrew had a question, which I can cover, which is, will this be recorded? And yes, it'll be on the Microsoft Developer YouTube channel shortly after the broadcast ends. They take a few minutes to put the video together. I do have a question as well, though, for Oz. When you showed there was a logs and metrics setup page, and there was a little link there to all defined resources. So when you click on that link for all defined resources, is that predefined resources, or can you actually define your own resources as well in there?
I'm going to go back here. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So all defined resources. So there's a certain subset of Azure resources or resource types that are supported for this particular platform resource log ingestion. So basically not all Azure resources emit platform logs. So you can click on that link and follow that through to see which ones are actually supported by this integration.
Sweet. Perfect. Okay. Thanks. And we'll kick it back over to Hemant to give us a further demo of integration and get into the nuts and bolts of how Elastic functions. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Brian, and Oz and Rohit. Great job at explaining the integration and giving the live overview of it. So just taking it back to the point, now that the native integration takes off a lot of the operational burden that users now don't have to, care about how to onboard Elastic into their Azure portal and deploy it. Now the users can start focusing more on how to leverage the value the Elastic solutions provide. And the three categories that I mentioned earlier, enterprise search, observability, and security, that's where the users can start to focus more, while Elastic and Microsoft take care of the underpinnings of how it gets deployed, how the SSO integration happens, and all the nuts and bolts that now you don't have to care about. So I wanted to just go through this, just help the audience on this session visualize that art of the possible now that the native integration enables you to seamlessly deploy Elastic into your Azure portal. So something that always helps in visualization is there is the SearchGo company that uses Elastic in a few ways, and I wanted to just go through their usage patterns, how they leverage it, and what problems are they solving. So as SearchGo is into the B2C, they have a product search experience that their customers come to, and they want to provide those delightful search experiences. So the customers keep coming back again and again. Help Center is another opportunity on their web properties where they can make the getting help from SearchGo as self-serviceable as possible for their customers. So they can keep the cost of keeping the customers happy down, and the CSAT scores high for the customers who are trying to get help from SearchGo. On the other side of the SearchGo, there are a lot of employees who come to work, and they leverage systems such as GitHub, OneDrive, SharePoint Online to work with the content that is required for them to perform their daily duties. And they're also leveraging enterprise search provided by Elastic as a way to provide the search experiences to these two different personas. On one hand, they are creating delightful experiences for their end customers. On the other hand, they're leveraging the enterprise search solution to make their employees more efficient and deliver. Obviously, all this also translates into a lot of infrastructure and end user devices that needs to be observed and protected. And that's where the security team and the developers and operations leverage the observability solution provided by Elastic and the Elastic security solution to keep this infrastructure and devices for the observability and also keep them protected. While the operations and dev teams are collecting all this information about the usage patterns, how customers come in, how they leverage the search experience, what product they ended up clicking on, this data is also made available to the marketing and business intelligence teams who can leverage this as a data source to make their decisions based on how the customers are accessing their web properties, what they're searching for, what they're finding, what they're not finding. A lot of that data serves a nice data source for the business and marketing teams as well. So leveraging the cross-cluster search and cross-cluster replication capabilities in the Elastic Stack as a platform, that seamless integration of data is also possible across the different teams. So let's start visualizing what these experiences look like in action. So I'll start with, so right now I am in Kibana. That's what you're seeing on my browser window. So this is the K of the Elk stack, if that's your familiarity source with what Elastic does. And as you can see here, depending on what role I'm owning and what problem I'm here to solve, I can go after the enterprise search, I can leverage the observability, and I can also leverage the security to get that tailored experience, irrespective of where I'm collecting the data from and what data I'm collecting. Kibana provides these tailored experiences for me to make my day-to-day as efficient as possible. So let's start with the search experience that SearchGo is providing to their end customers on their help center. So this is where, as a SearchGo customer, I can come in and try to find helpful topics, or maybe there is a specific issue that I'm running into, and I'm trying to get help, self-service myself. Leveraging the analytics that is captured by the enterprise search solution, the developer team can also create the popular topics and make those reference and recommendations depending on what's trending and where most of the people are looking for help. Sometimes you can provide the end user not even to have to search, right? They can just arrive on your help center and leverage the popular topics to get to the help they need. In this case, I don't see what I am looking for, so I start typing reset my password. And as you would notice, as I was typing, it is giving me suggestions. It's also taking into consideration someone who might have done a typo in what they're searching for, it's trying to be tolerant to those typos as well. So this is something Elasticsearch has been in use for a long time. App Search, that's part of the Elastic Enterprise Search solution, just makes it a lot more easier for the developers to create these experiences and iterate on these experiences. Another piece of art of the possible is I might have ended up searching for it and not finding the information for whatever reason. I could go to the contact support, and you would notice on the right-hand side, these are suggestions based on what I'm typing. So if I start saying, reset my password, you would notice on the right-hand side, it's just giving me recommendations again. So this is, again, SearchGo is trying to make sure that someone gets help before they need to get in touch with someone and wait for the response to come back and whatnot. So this is just to quickly give you a sense of how the enterprise search can be leveraged to create delightful search experiences for the end users and customers. Another aspect of creating a search experience for your customers is anyone who has done it or looking to do it is everyone knows that this is not a one-time effort where you produce a search experience and customers are all happy after that. There is a lot of analytics that goes into just understanding the behavior of the people, what they're searching for and what they're finding and what they're not finding. This is where the other persona that the enterprise search solution helps is the actual folks who are creating those search experiences for the end customers. So let me log in as someone who is responsible for creating the search experience. And this is my view into what has been happening on that help center. And this just gives me a quick sense of how much this specific feature, this search functionality that I've created is actually being used. You can leverage things such as click-through APIs just to understand what people are searching for and if they actually ended up finding something meaningful, because usually a click is a good amount of just give you a sense whether they are finding what they're searching for. I can keep going on into this, and it just keeps providing me more helpful things around, what's the most popular term that people come and end up searching in my help center. I'm also equally interested in just knowing what are specific terms and queries that people are searching for but not finding the results in, because this gives me an immediate starting point to just make a significant change into the experience. So looking at this, maybe it looks like there are some other languages that I could potentially look at supporting, because people are trying to access keywords that are not necessarily supported in the search language that I've created right now. So this is where I could do things such as, maybe I want to go ahead and create a synonym because someone is just referring to an item that already exists, but they just have a different way of referring to it. So I could create a synonym set from here. If someone is searching for cloud, they might be searching for Azure. I just want it to be synonymous to each other. So this is where I just quickly saved a synonym, and without changing anything in my application or my code, next time when someone comes and searches on the help center, cloud and Azure would act synonymous. Same way, I can also just tailor to the experience a little bit better. So I can create a new curation here. So if someone is looking for cloud, I want to understand what their experience is. I will change it to Azure because I already have something that exists with the same keyword. So this essentially is giving me the top 10 documents that my customers would be seeing when they search with Azure as the keyword. There might be a specific document that I am promoting, or I want to make sure that it shows up higher, even though my scoring and just the relevancy at this point is not doing it. So I can promote that specific result, and it just gets promoted. So next time when someone searches, this promoted document would show up as the first result. I can also go the other way around, which is I may want to hide some stale documents that are not relevant anymore. But by the time all that curation and everything happens, I would just hide this result, so it will not show up when folks are searching, the customers are searching on my help center when they're looking for Azure as a keyword. That specific document that I just hid, it will not show up in the result. I can keep on going. Like there is a lot that it provides to folks who are responsible for creating the search experience. This is where I can look for Azure just to see what the experience is currently for the my customers, and I can just try and work with the relevancy at this point. And as I'm trying it out, on the right-hand side, you would notice the scores are changing. So this just gives me a little bit of playground as someone who's responsible for creating the search experience, to come back here and iterate on my search experience until my customers are completely delighted and I'm satisfied that they are finding what they're looking for. So this is one aspect of how SearchGo is creating these customer-facing search experiences. The another side, as I mentioned earlier, is the workplace search, the experience that SearchGo has created for its employees. Depending on the teams that they're part of, when they come to work and they're trying to find the content, they might be looking at the same content sources as you see here on the screen. But depending on my team, I might have a different expectation of what results are shown as more relevant to me. So someone from marketing team, I am looking for email marketing PDFs. That's something this week, that's where I'm focused on. So I'm looking to find some content that I've been working on. You would notice the PDFs in the keywords has been auto-detected as a potential extension. And you would notice this modern search experience that Workplace Search is providing, it's trying to be as helpful as it can upfront without the users having to search for something and then go and click on the extensions. So you would notice on the left-hand side, this is bringing content from a lot of sources. And if you see the results here in the center, this is where you would notice that this is not just a federated search that's happening on different content sources. Eventually, all the content sources that you add to your workplace search experience, they all get ranked against each other and to provide the most relevant results to the end users. This is where I can just probably click on a document from SharePoint, and on the right-hand side, it just gives me further information. And a lot of times, that's all I need, even before clicking on the document or not. So this is where it's trying to, by providing this relevant, fast search experience on different content sources, the SearchGo is trying to drive the efficiency for its employees up, so that now they can find this content and information in a much easier fashion. It supports a lot more just automatic keyword detections. For example, GitHub is another source that I have into this instance. And I can search for something as open pull requests. And it is intelligent enough to detect these keywords as, it sounds like something that's targeted at GitHub and maybe not at the OneDrive or not at the SharePoint. So you would notice all of them have been colored into blue, which is usually an indication that Workplace Search figured out that it's a keyword that I should pay more attention to. And on the left-hand side, you would notice, even though it's getting the results from GitHub, it's doing further filtering on top of everything that it's getting back. So this was just a quick overview of how SearchGo is leveraging the enterprise search solution by Elastic for its employees. There is also the other side of this experience, just like it was in the application search or help center use case. There is someone who's responsible for creating and managing the search experience, and Workplace Search, that's part of the enterprise search solution, wants to make sure that there is value for that persona as well. And the view for someone who's responsible for creating this workplace search experience, I am in the administration view of it, and right now I'm just in the sources, and these are all the sources that I have configured to be the content sources for the search experience I just showed you. I can click on an organizational source, so this is where all the out-of-the-box connectors are available, and if you have a legacy source or a source that's not supported yet, you can always leverage the custom API source to connect that content as well into the workplace search experience. So just to quickly show just the whole idea of, this is not a one-time effort. You always have to reiterate. So based on the experience that I've created for my employees, I have been given a feature request where the product engineering team has mentioned that even though they are interested in the different content sources, like they're equally interested in OneDrive and Confluence, they still want this search experience to boost anything that's coming from GitHub when they're searching to be prioritized a little higher than maybe OneDrive. So they would want to get Confluence and GitHub content results higher than OneDrive or Google Drive. So this is, again, just a quick and easy way of, without changing anything, the persona who's responsible for creating the search experience, they have a lot of power and value in this solution to be able to take into that iteration aspect of evolving the search experiences. So I just quickly went through the search experiences, how enterprise search solution is leveraged by SearchCo for their customer-facing applications, and how it's also employed for the employees, no pun intended, to make them more efficient in what they do every day as they work with these content sources. As I mentioned earlier, this also results into a lot of infrastructure that now need to be observed and monitored. And this is where I wanted to get into a segue of how the DevOps team or developers are leveraging all this observability data in terms of logs, metrics, and application traces that they're getting to make sure that system is doing well and customers are happy, and they're trying to get ahead of any problems that might be happening. So switching over to, I'm again back in Kibana. And one thing that I mentioned earlier, in Kibana, if you look at the left-hand side, this pane that I just opened, depending on what role I'm assuming when I come to work with my Elastic solution, I can leverage the tailored experiences that are created within Kibana and start working on what I'm currently interested in. So I am starting with my observability as someone in the developer and operations team. I am just curious to know how my application has been doing. What you're seeing on the screen is the APM component of the observability in Elastic, and this is just giving a service map overview of how this microservices-based application that's polyglot with multiple languages is working overall. You would notice the Edward service has these red circles around it, and what has happened before I got to the screen was Elastic Stack has this component machine learning, and there is an unsupervised machine learning job that's running, analyzing the response times of all these services. So that's an out-of-the-box machine learning job that the users can enable. And what it would do is, instead of waiting for something catastrophic to happen, it would just look for anomalies within the response times of these services. So the reason I am here, there was an alert that my machine learning job created, and it alerted me that Edward service is showing unusual behavior in the response time. So I know my starting point is just looking at the Edward service. And as I click on this, you would notice the reason it's highlighted in the red, because there was an anomaly detected for the response time. So I can do a few things. I can go to the service details just to understand more about how this service has been performing during this window. Or I can go and look at the anomalies, the view that will give me a sense of what exactly was detected in the behavior that was flagged as an anomaly. So let me start with the anomaly view of it. So this service, what you're seeing on the screen, this is the part of the machine learning in the Elastic Stack, which gets used across the different solutions that are built on top of Elastic Stack. So this is where it's looking at the Edward service over time for the type request. And what you see here is the blue shaded region that you see around the actual graph. That's the normal and model behavior based on what it has learned. And that piece evolves with time, because this is an unsupervised machine learning job that's running. Every time my request and response times deviate for these services, it will flag them as an anomaly. So it potentially found out that the response times were unusually slow for this service suddenly, and that's why it has flagged an anomaly, which created an alert that got me here. Let me go back to the services view of that specific service in that duration. And all this is, I'm working off the service map from there. I clicked on the service and I picked up the service details. And I'm here just looking at how this service has been doing over time. So I see the annotations on the timeline of the service. And usually these annotations mean there was a new version of the service that was released. And that's what just highlighted here. I can start correlating just to understand a little bit further on what has been going. And correlations here is just trying to make sure, is just trying to take a dig at the behavior it's seeing and the things that have changed in my service. I can customize this to different fields. I can look at different thresholds, like what makes me more comfortable on what I'm after. So in the 99th percentile, you would see the 96% of the slow transactions, they are impacted by a specific field in my data, and that's service version. So just by looking at this correlation quickly, I have identified that it's a service version. When the service version was upgraded, that's where most of the transactions started and ended up being slow. You can add your own fields as well. So there is customization there too for correlations. But this is just to show quickly out of the box what that experience looks like for the DevOps teams. Perfect. So with this, the last solution area that I wanted to quickly jump in is the security. And for the security, again, like I said, I am still in Kibana. I'm just assuming different role, and I'm leveraging the different tailored experiences that have been created by Elastic. So in this case, there are a lot of out-of-the-box detection rules that are there that you can enable. And what it does is, based on the data that you're collecting, the security-related events that you're collecting, these detection rules can find out if they detected something unusual or something that was probably based on a threshold that you're after. So I can see that some of them are critical, and that would be my starting point. I can click on the analyzing of this event. And you would notice here, I get a tailored experience just to see, what exactly the timeline looked like for by the time Elastic said, hey, this could be potential malware. So it's just telling me that somebody opened up Windows Word and it started an Office updater, which is totally normal. What's not normal is the Office updater itself then spanned a few more processes that don't look very normal for Microsoft Word to do. So this just was a quick overview of how the same Elastic platform underneath, based on the data that you're collecting, you can leverage the Elastic security solution to detect anomalies, to alert on them and take action on them. Just to be cognizant of time, I would switch back to the presentation to wrap us up. So the action item or call to action, if you've joined our session live or if you're watching this in future, these are some helpful resources to get started with Elastic on Azure. That, as I mentioned earlier, it is available on Azure Marketplace, so you can follow that link to try it out. Oz mentioned this earlier, there is a lot more interesting that's coming next, but we would still love to hear from you what you think of what we have done so far, and if there are any suggestions, requests that you would want us to pursue as the deeper integrations happen between Elastic and Azure. We are looking forward to learn about them. And with that, Brian, that's the content that we had for today.
Beautiful. Thank you, Hemant. That was great. A couple of things. We still have a few minutes left in this live broadcast, about 8 minutes. So please do ask your questions. Go to aka.ms/learntv. And you can ask us questions there, and I will relay them to our guests today. One other thing, if you want to follow any of the links that were shown today, you can go to ak.ms/thelaunchspace_elastic. That's going to be the show page where you can find all the info that we've shared today. Some of those links aren't there yet, but I'll add them right after the show. Last but not least, we do have one question from the audience, and then I actually have a question. Rizwan Tayyab, thank you for your question. He was asking, what's the performance difference between Elasticsearch and SQL full text search? Now, before you answer, I'll say my own uneducated opinion is they're not necessarily comparative. SQL is going to be anything that's in your SQL database, whereas Elastic covers a lot more than that. So comparing them in terms of performance is it's going to be a bit of a challenge. But anyone else want to take that question?
Yeah, I think besides the big plus one to that answer, Brian, it is like they are fundamentally different technologies, and I know depending on the SQL database that you're working with, there are similar text query search like features that sometimes would have people wonder, like if they're already there, why would I have something else?
Yeah,
it's a very it depends question. So if there is a way for us to follow up from with the attendee who has this question, I'm sure there is a lot of context to that question that if we knew, we could probably answer better.
Yep, cool. My question as well is, and this is for anybody. So I noticed you mentioned the SharePoint data source. So there's actually a SharePoint data source. Does that include all the attachments, all the Word documents, and any kind of other formats that are attached inside of SharePoint? Or what exactly does that cover?
Yeah, so the right now we support SharePoint Online. The SharePoint On-Prem is not supported yet as a content source, but within the SharePoint Online, it does support the attachments and the content that exists there.
Right. So it creates sort of an index or a log of all the data, and you can actually create facets of those indexes, I assume. So you can actually have specific data types that you want to search for inside of SharePoint, perhaps, like Word.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is smart enough to pick up the extensions of the files as well. Like when I was looking for the PDFs, it does that part when indexing the metadata from SharePoint content.
Sweet. Okay. Well, we don't have any other questions at the moment, but we still have a few more minutes. So does anyone have anything they want to add? You know, I was going to talk just a little bit. If you could share those data sources again, if we could just go through some more detail of those, or unless someone else has something they want to add in the last few minutes. Maybe not. Okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah, the data sources themselves, I was very interested in those. So, of course, you can connect to the content sources, but actually, you'll get SharePoint Online, Zendesk, Salesforce would be useful. Is there a way right now to connect to, say, Azure Monitor? Maybe someone already has an Azure Monitor set up. So how would they connect? Would just through the raw log files, or would there be another way they can connect through there?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. And Rohit and Oz, I know you folks could go in a lot more details, because the native integration itself, there are a lot of points, touch points with the Azure Monitor. Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. I can start off, and then Oz can fill in any more details. So one of the big components of the native integration that we spoke about is in relation with Azure monitoring. Mm-hmm. So as you're aware, all of the logs and metrics information that's emitted from an Azure resource makes its way into Azure Monitor.
Right.
So how do we pull that from Azure Monitor as a source and then take that to Elastic? That is where some of the work that we've done as part of this integration comes into play, where a user of this does not need to stand up their own event hub, stand up their own file beat or metric speed and manage that. That whole integration is built in, as part of this larger seamless integration we provide.
Cool. All right. We still have a few more questions. How about Teams? I see you have Slack there. I guess would the Teams be covered under? Is there a way to connect through Teams as well?
Yeah. So what you're seeing on the screen, Brian, is the workplace search solution, and in this one, Slack is a content source, but Teams is not here yet.
Okay.
Did not get into the alerting component that Elasticstack has. That's where there is an integration that's available for Teams. So someone who's looking at that observability data, that alert that I talked about in my observability demo,
yes,
that alert could totally go to a Teams chat and let folks know that, hey, there is something that needs your attention, and it could carry a link with it for them to be able to get into Elastic from there.
Perfect. Because I know there's a lot of teams who use Teams to have either a Teams channel or a chat, and they might have a space that they want to collect all the information about alerts and resolutions and things like that. So that's nice. It'll integrate nicely with any kind of ticketing system they might have as well if it's in Teams. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Teams can be sort of the local common denominator. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. We've got about 1 minute left. Hemant, Rohit, Oz, I thank you very much for being on the show today, and there was a lot of great info. Much appreciated, and thanks for coming.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks.